Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adam Smith, and inside this GameFound previous series, we continue our adventure in Tanares Expeditions Central Sea from Dragori Games. This one's landing on GameFound in mid-November. The exact date of launch, as well as the campaign page link, can be found either in the video description or the pinned comment. If you haven't checked out part number 1, which I've already released as it went all the way through encounter number 1, as well as how to play, showed how the game flowed and operate, definitely recommend you check it out first before we dive into this video. I'll put a link to it in the top right hand corner. Without further ado, we'll quickly go over Encounter 2's setup. Although we've already done it, I want to refresh your minds as to where we're currently at, and then we'll get right into gameplay and see how things pan out for our band of pirates on the beach. As my pirates continue to push into Blink Island, we have some narrative to read. I'll also quickly highlight some of the things in Encounter 2 there, but you can read them in the meantime if you wish. It states, "But don't get too comfortable just yet. I tried to throw those enemy ships off course, but they ain't buying it. They set up their arcane cannons and they've got you locked in their sights. Stay sharp, those cannonballs will leave more than just a scratch, and reinforcements are landing as we speak. Now is your chance. Turn the tables and let them taste their own firepower. Knock them out with their own explosions, and they'll think twice before crossing us again." Now below, Encounter 2 tells us the challenge in order to get an additional coin for everybody in the party is if I can kill 2 enemies with cannon damage, then I'll get that additional coin at the very tail end of the quest. Again, a quest is made up of a number of encounters. We already covered encounter number 1 in part 1. We're now into encounter number 2. We've already placed the villains. If you want to see how that was done, I did that at the tail end of part number 1 as well. This is the arcane cannon section, very important because it's special for this encounter. And it reads, at the end of each round, the ship fires 2 shots targeting 2 different heroes located on even-numbered coordinates. When fired, it creates a 2x2 area and deals 5 damage to all the heroes and villains within the area, so nobody is safe. If more than 2 heroes are on the even coordinates, they prioritize the hero with no villains adjacent to it. You can choose the area as long as it includes the hero target, and each hero can only be targeted by one of the 2 shots. And of course, the main objective of this entire thing is to take out all the villains. In this case, we have a couple villains and we have 1 villain which was made elite. For those that remember in part number 1, we already set up the enemies as well as the initiative track, and we can actually see how things are laid out. Again, this is more of an initiative tower than it is a row. It's going to be moving from left to right across the rows. So we're starting here with Captain Marva. Moving on, we have 2 heroes in a row. Then a Sea Curse card will be flipped to tell us what the pirates can be doing, whether they're red or blue. We have an elite pirate. That's the one that ended up being the one a little bit stronger. And by a little bit, I mean quite a bit. It actually bumped up the HP of that enemy, bumped up the damage. It also bumped up its defenses. So a number of things to deal with that pirate. I believe the pirate was the last thing to be killed off in the prior part 1, so maybe it's coming back for revenge. Just above the storybook, we have the HP tracker, shows all the heroes as well as the villains' HP levels. We have a number of individuals sitting on top of HP 20, as you can see. We also have a new thing in this encounter, because as you continue to progress through the game, new things will be introduced. And one of the things introduced here is not only the elite enemy we have to deal with, but also the ability to interact with a chest. And when we interact with a chest, of course, just like a pirate would do, looking for treasure, we can go inside the chest deck here, draw a card, and find out what's inside. Now, we talked about this at the very end of part number 1, but all these villains are set up with the guard keyword, which means our heroes are here, but the guards don't know they're here. They're just simply guarding. They're simply there. They're inside the initiative row, but they're not going to actually take a turn and activate as we move through our heroes until our heroes choose to either target one of the enemies and attack them, or to hit them with some type of effect, gameplay effect, or get too close to them. If you're within 2 squares of one of the enemies, then they become active. And it's not just the individual that you've targeted or gotten too close to that becomes active. The entire group becomes active. Now, something else of note is that there's a lot of rocky terrain here. You'll notice circles inside of each of these spaces here with rocks, and that's because it's considered difficult terrain. So the movement cost, in other words, each square of these difficult terrain areas are going to count as 2 squares of movement. So it's going to cost a little bit more to kind of get over these rocks. There's restrictions around sidestepping. So remember, you can sidestep to avoid a reaction. You cannot sidestep onto difficult terrain without spending 2 move actions. So you're going to have to spend even more just to try to avoid reactions. And then diagonal movement, you can still move diagonally, but it still counts as 2 squares of movement. Starting off encounter number 2, at the beginning of the initiative track is Captain Marva. She's going to choose to do a move action and then another move action. Remember, those arcane cannons are going to be focusing on heroes that are sitting in even-numbered coordinates. So in other words, as long as I can end my turn with my heroes in odd-numbered coordinates, then I can avoid the cannon shots that'll be shot at us. So I'll be trying my best to move, get myself into position with my 4 heroes without causing any cannon damage coming at us. First action is a move action. I get 4 movement points for Captain Marva. I've used them to get to this position. Also remember, if you happen to be trying to cut corners around these spikes, you're going to get damaged, so I'm taking the long way around. Next, I'm going to have her do another move action instead of her prime action, because you can do this. This will give me another 4 points of movement. I'm going to get myself further into position and make sure that I'm at least 3 spaces away from the nearest enemy, because I do not want to have these enemies notice me and become active. Next up is another hero, Captain Marianne. She has the ability to move up to 4. She'll be doing a double move for her turn as well. 4 movement points gets her to this position. Another move action for another 4 points will get her very close to where Captain Marva is, and thankfully it'll actually be an odd spot as well, which is good for us on the coordinates side in terms of the arcane cannons. That'll do it for 2 of my 4 heroes, but we now move into the initiative track for the Sea Curse. Let's flip over the top card of the deck and find out what they're up to. This is a nasty one this time around. It's called Tempest of Rain. All heroes are going to take 3 damage. We'll do that in a second. Below it says it's going to be targeting 1 hero, so all the enemies or villains will be targeting 1 hero. The red will be going after the closest and blue the furthest. That's an unfortunate hit for all of my heroes, so we'll knock all of them down by 3. That's a pretty nasty Sea Curse card. We're going to continue on. The next one in the initiative order is going to be the Pirate, the Elite Pirate. But the Elite Pirate is not going to activate. It's still in its guard state, so we move on to Captain Doro. My plan going out the beach is to keep some of the characters which are not doing so great at health and or not so great at doling out as much damage towards the south section of the beach. They can handle the smaller minions and villains, but I really want this elite to be dealt with by Captain Krog and Captain Doro, who are my 2 heavy hitters. So I'm going to get them moving to the north side of the beach. His first action is going to be to move, and again, I'm being smart. I'm making sure I move all the way around 90 degrees around these very scary spikes, doing the exact same thing with another 5 move to get a bit closer. We'll land in the column 11, keeping us away from the arcane cannons. Next individuals in the initiative row are the skeleton and then the goblin, but neither know we're even here. So because of that, we're skipping all the way down to the last person, Captain Krog. Captain Krog's turn, he moves 5, but I just realized I actually switched Captain Krog and Captain Doro by mistake. But again, it's not going to make any gameplay impact. I'll essentially flip it when they get to their final positions. So Captain Krog, who I just moved as Captain Doro, is going to go 5 more spaces. He'll land here. I'm going to basically just flip them because technically the one that I would have gotten here first in this position would have been Captain Doro, and Captain Krog would have come later and sat there. I'm keeping them both in column 11. Glad I caught that, made the switch, we're all good and squared away. We're now going to end of round, and Arcane Cannon's going to fire some shots. It says at the end of each round, the ship's going to fire 2 shots, targeting 2 different heroes located on even-numbered coordinates. When fired, it creates a 2x2 area and deals 5 damage to all heroes and villains within the area. So basically, so long as we can keep ourselves off the even coordinates, those columns, then we will not incite any kind of firing of cannons towards us, which again expand into larger areas that hit more individuals. So it can be a good thing because it could potentially actually hit villains as well, but it's always going to be targeting heroes. So for now, we're keeping ourselves in the odd columns. We also don't want to forget about the general quest trait, which ties back to a cursed crystal, which Captain Krog is holding, which deals 4 damage to him at the beginning of every single turn. So he was the last one to go in the round. He's going to take 4 damage right now, and if he had taken the damage at the beginning of his turn, I would have used his heal card, which I can tap to heal 2. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So basically only taking 2 damage. I'll have to remember that going forward because that continues throughout all the encounters within the quest. We start this round off with Captain Marva. She's going to go ahead and make a move. She's going to head along the back side of the map here. And she's going to be the first one to break the silence and make an attack 4 squares away at this skeleton right here. She's going to benefit from her accuracy passive that says if you're 4 or more squares away from your target, you deal +2 damage on the first hit of your turn. It's worth mentioning that difficult terrain does not block any vision or line of sight to your enemy, so I have easy line of sight right now, 4 spaces away, getting that +2 damage. It's within the 5 squares for the distance of this attack. 1 enemy, it is a skeleton being targeted. We're rolling a die. The defense of the skeleton is a 6, so we're looking for a 7 or higher to get a hit. And that, my friends, is a solid one. We're going to get ourselves 5 damage off the card below, plus the 2 from her passive for a total of 7. Skeleton has 20 HP, but is now down to 13, and also the effect of this card places the target of the attack, if it is a successful hit, of course, to the end of the initiative track. And at this very moment after that attack, all of the patrol units are now activated, so all of them are going to take their regular turns going forward. Next is Captain Marianne. She's down here. She's going to take a move action, then she's going to do some healing water as her main attack. Now, unfortunately, she won't get her passive going into this because she has to be exactly within one range of an ally, and she's just short of that. But she is in an odd space, so that's good in terms of the arcane cannons later on. She's going to go ahead and target actually the goblin with the healing water, so it's going to be a enemy at least 5 spaces away. Of course, it can be shorter if it wants to be, but that's going to be the targeted attack. 3 damage is all we get if we get a successful hit here, and the goblin has a defense of 5, so we need a 6 or higher to get a hit. Let's see how we do. We got ourselves a 5. That's not going to do it. That is a miss. Do we have any residual damage off this? We do. We get 3 damage residual. But wait, we are inside of encounter number 2, and as it says on our Holy Priest card, encounter 2 is +3 to attack rolls. So she actually has an 8 on this roll, which is a hit, which means 3 damage goes on from the healing water, but also the best thing about that hit being successful is the fact we get to heal 3 from a hero, and I can even choose myself, and the healer definitely needs 3 heal. So either way, the goblin was going to get hit with 3 damage, but the plus here is because we actually got a hit successfully, we get the effect, which gives us the heal, and that helps out the healer because that's who I'm choosing to bring back up from 11 to 14. Well, this certainly isn't good news. Next up, we have the Sea Curse deck. We draw a new card, Power of the Depths. It says villains are going to gain 1 empowered token. That's not good. It's going to have them dealing +2 damage against enemies. Tokens have all been placed, and next up, unfortunately, is the Elite Pirate. Now, the Elite is a red card, so we only follow the bottom portion. I believe I pointed to the top portion earlier in the video, but I did mention that on screen. I was incorrect. It's not a +1 defense for this individual. It's all of the bottom stuff. So +10, so 30 health, which I already have set from way back at the end of the video. The damage is going to be a little bit tougher. 5 extra damage on top of the 7 it normally throws out. So yikes, that's a good solid 12 hit. And then, of course, with this token on top of it, it's an additional 2. So that is an insanely powerful attack, which I'm not looking forward to. Movement here, we got 5 +1 is 6, and it's going to do some movement right now to try to get within 1 square to do its attack. He's got 6 movement, and he can go right through the difficult terrain to get right beside both of my characters. Now, he has multiple paths that he could take here that don't cause him any damage or pain. He could have technically landed here, or he could have landed here. He's always going to the closest based on the card that's here, so I have the choice as to where I want to put him, and this is where I can choose strategically to place him somewhere where we can maybe potentially get a flank situation going on. Again, to have flank, we'd have to be 1 space adjacent to each other, so I'm trying to put him more centered versus kind of putting him in the back corner. Although it doesn't matter too much because I can still basically walk around him either way. But we'll put him in this spot right here for now, and we'll see how things go. But I can tell you it's not going to be good. Now, I have to choose who is going to be the target here because both are viable targets. And certainly with a massive hit potentially incoming, it's going to really come down to who's got the most HP. This is a tough call because technically Captain Krog has less health than Captain Doro. Krog has 15, whereas Doro has 17. The attack that's going to be coming at me, if successful, is going to be 7, +5 is 12, +2 is 14. So either way, I'm okay in terms of not dying outright with one of these characters, but if I happen to roll a critical success, a natural 20, that's another +3 damage, so that gets us into very scary territory potentially. Now the thing is, between the two characters, both of them have different defense values. Captain Krog has 8, and Captain Doro has 6, making this even more tough to decide. So I might actually go with Captain Krog here and hope that the additional defense is going to help me out. So this Pirate Elite needs to get higher than an 8 in order for it to hit. So here's hoping that it does not happen. Well, my friends, that is absolutely a hit. And now I have been mentioning that it has to be higher than defensive value. It actually can be equal to or higher, and it would be a hit. Doesn't have any gameplay impact so far during this video, but this was certainly a hit. An unfortunate one because it's going to be a hefty smack against Captain Krog. Captain Krog is down to 1 HP. The token that was here on the Pirate Elite for Empowered has now been used and is gone. This is not good. It's also worth mentioning that Captain Krog had a defensive boost, so he actually had 10 defense. I didn't even notice this tiny little token there on his dashboard, but wouldn't have mattered because with a great hit that the Elite Pirate got, didn't have any impacts. This token is removed, everything stays the same. And that's going to be really rough because Captain Krog is going to be in big time trouble if he doesn't get some heal because he's holding the Cursed Crystal, which is going to hit him for 4 damage when his turn starts. So I need to think about that, but the downside is my healer has already gone, so I don't even know if there's anything I can do at this point. We now move on to Captain Doro, and don't forget, we also have our ultimates here, which we can use. I've been keeping an eye on that for the right time to use it. Again, you can only use it once per quest, and of course, a quest has multiple encounters, so you got to choose wisely as to when you really need to use that. This is a huge one. Assassinate has me moving preemptively when I use it in order to then, and it doesn't actually trigger any reactions, which is even better, and then I can get in position so long as I'm one away, and if the individual enemy has 16 or less health, I can assassinate them. Now, it'd be amazing to do that to the elite if I get the elite down. So what I'm going to try to do is a heart strike. We're going to do that gamble we did in part number 1. We're going to take a -4 to the die roll to try to get increased damage off the attack. Now, there's a couple ways I could have gone here with Captain Doro, but I'm going to push through with Heart Strike because I think it makes sense. I've got a card right here called Deadly Blade. It says encounter 2 +3 to attack rolls. So when I take the -4 from Heart Strike, I'm actually getting a +3 automatically for this encounter, which means I'm only losing -1 off the die roll to get 4 damage. I could have gone a different road and chosen a different main attack with Captain Doro called Break Armor. Gives me a preemptive move that doesn't incite reactions. I can put myself in a position where I'm flanking the enemy to get a boost damage that way, but I'm going to decide to stay put, and we're going to go with the 4 extra damage instead. There's a -1 on this die roll coming up. The actual elite has 6 in terms of its defense, so if we hit a 6 or higher, we're good on the hit. And of course, we're looking at the bottom portion here, so it does not have the +1 defense. Let's see how we do. We got a natural 20. That's a +3 on top of it. Now that, my friends, is a great roll. We got ourselves a natural 20, a +3 there. We have 10 from this card because 6 plus the 4, minus a 4 off the die. So 10 damage there, 3 from the natural 20. We also have here, it says at least one ally is within 1 range of the target during your attack. We do have Captain Krog there, so we get +2 from that as well. That is 15 damage. So even though Krog took a massive hit, we just took the elite down by half its health. And remember, I've got that ultimate assassinate attack for a potential next round hit against the elite to wipe it out cleanly. Lots of damage flying around. Captain Doro is going to stay exactly where it is. The Goblin is up next, and the Goblin is right here. Goblin is red. It's going to be following, based on the Sea Curse, the closest individual, which is going to be the healer. So it's going to come charging in, and taking a look at the Goblin's card here off to the side, it says it's going to hit for 6 damage, but it does have that 2 from Empowerment. So it's going to be hitting for 8 damage if it lands a hit, which is not good. So we're going to go ahead and make a roll here. Now, going against the healer has 7 defense. So here's hoping we can defend against this. If we see a 7 or higher on this roll, we have been hit. Let's see how it goes. Yes. So unfortunately, that's going to be 8 damage going up against the healer, who's currently at 14. Not good at all. Looks like Krog and the healer are headed towards a bad situation here, but Krog is up next, and we're going to have to resolve one of those bad situations right now. Captain Krog's turn coming around is going to activate, which activates the Cursed Crystal, throwing 4 damage at him, which is going to reduce him to 0. In a situation where one of your party members reaches 0 HP, they are considered dead. At this point in time, you take the standee or the miniature, remove it from the map, and replace it with the HP token to mark where the demise occurred. Now, combatants on the game board can freely occupy this space and step on the square where the HP token now sits for poor Captain Krog. Doesn't influence any combat rules in the game, just a marker of where his demise was. So what are the effects of death? Well, you're not going to have any more actions. You can't receive any healing. You also are going to come to an end for effects. So if there was an effect that was wide sweeping, that was impacting all of the heroes, well, that's no longer going to impact that Captain Krog, but it's still going to impact all the rest of the heroes going forward. We don't have any of those currently at the moment. Gaining rewards. Now, despite the death, the hero's still going to gain coins and improvement cards, though they can't use them while they're dead. Now, when a hero dies and falls in battle, all is not lost forever. Through the use of first aid, they can be revived and continue their quest. So while they can't take healing buffs, they can be revived through first aid. But first aid is a precious resource, and careful management of it throughout the game is very essential. Each quest within the game grants you 2 first aid tokens. These tokens will automatically replenish at the start of each new quest. So remember again, a quest is made up of multiple encounters. We're currently on the 2nd encounter. There's potentially 3, 4, or 5 within this quest, so you're only going to have so many first aid tokens to use. If you get into a situation where all of your first aid tokens run out and another hero dies, you lose the quest at the start of this dead hero's turn. The quest must be abandoned as the hero needs special care that cannot be provided in the heat of battle. You have to remember the dead heroes remain in the initiative track, but if they are not revived when their turn comes, the consequences could be dire. We use a first aid token if we wish at the start of the dead hero's next turn, so for now we just continue onwards. The skeleton is activating next. It's going to have the benefit of a +2 damage when it does its attack. It's got 5 movement and is heading towards the individual with the fewest HP. The skeleton gets in position, which is nasty because even after moving 5 and had to use 2 for each of the difficult terrain positions, it's in a flank position with its friendly goblin there. So it's going to get a +3 on damage. It's got 7 damage if it gets a hit as well, so that's a total of 10. Plus the 2 off the empower token is a total of 12. That will more than enough KO and knock out and kill the healer if this hit lands. If it doesn't land, it's just going to do 3 residual damage and she'll be okay. So here's hoping that the miss occurs. Now her defense is currently at 7, so we are looking for 6 or lower on this die. That was going to keep us from going down a bad path. We got ourselves 17. Unfortunately, she's going down as well. And that, my friends, was a very rough round. Again, we look for the arcane cannons, and can we hit any heroes that are on even coordinates? No, everybody's on odd. I've been doing that on purpose. Unfortunately, though, during this round was very rough. We lost 2 individuals, so we're going to have to use both of our first aid tokens in order to get those 2 individuals back up and running during this next upcoming round. We start off with Captain Marva. Captain Marva has seen enough. She's going to step up for her friends in the party and try to do some serious damage here. She's going to go ahead and use a sidestep to not incite a reaction from the skeleton to get back here. She's also going to use her ultimate now in order to do a fireball. She's going to target this position right here, and by targeting this individual goblin, it makes a 3x3 area around, and that is why I stepped out. That's going to also affect the skeleton as well. So here's hoping this hit actually lands. We're going to be rolling right now. The target is, again, the goblin who has a defense of 5, so we just need to see a 5 or higher. The great news is I have a +3 to attack rolls for encounter number 2 thanks to Hexmaster, so we are going in looking pretty good. Let's see how the roll goes. 7 + 3 is a 10, which is enough to do the damage, which is awesome. The fireball is successful, consuming up the area here, which is great. Her passive states down here that if you're 4 or more squares away from your target, you deal an additional 2 damage from the first hit of your turn, which means the first hit is going to be the target, which is going to be the goblin. So that 2 damage only goes here. So first we'll do 7 for each of them, an additional 2 to the goblin here. The goblin ends up going from 12 to 3, and the skeleton from 13 to 6. We now move on to the next person in initiative row, which is going to be Captain Marianne. But there's one thing I want to talk about, the fact that Captain Krog had that cursed crystal, and someone in the party needs to be holding that. Now, I'm not 100% certain based on the prototype rules whether this just immediately drops to the ground or someone in the party has to take it. I'm going to say thematically that someone needs to take it immediately, and it would likely be the person that's closest to that individual. So I'm going to have Captain Doro take it because it just makes logical sense. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's part of what's called the general quest trait. So all encounters need to have this cursed piece with us. So now Captain Doro has to endure it. That was a bit of a bunny trail. We're on to Captain Marianne's turn. And now at this point, we have to talk about one of the characters that is dead. We're going to use a first aid token to revive her. Now, the revival process does have a cost. Besides the first aid token, you also would lose 2 coins if you had it at this point in time, which I don't, thankfully. So just at this point, we're bringing the hero standee back into play where the HP tracker is, and then the HP tracker will be set to exactly what the first aid token said, which is 15. And the second she survives, she's able to take actions as normal, movement and prime actions. Now, just think about the strategy side of the equation and trying to avoid flank once again, because that's that benefit that these 2 can get on her where she's positioned right now. If I choose to go ahead and put her here with a sidestep for her first action to move, it looks good on paper until you look at the initiative track and you see the next one to activate is going to be the goblin, which would just close the gap and go ahead and boom, flank again. So instead of doing that, let's go ahead and move her sidestepping this way to prevent that flank from happening. And it won't completely prevent the flank because, of course, the skeleton will activate later on, but maybe we can kill one of these off first. And if she focuses her attack here on this weak goblin, we might be able to take it out. And actually looking at this main attack here, it's going to be a guarantee either way. We're getting 3 damage regardless of whether we hit or miss, and that's exactly how much health that this goblin has. So we're going for it. Let's go ahead and make this attack. We can get a heal too if we actually get a hit. Now the goblin defense is a 5, so we're looking for a 5 or higher. We got ourselves a 10. That is more than enough. We've killed off one of the villains. She even had her +3 to an attack roll on that one, so she was golden either way. That's the first villain removed. The initiative track has been updated to remove the card for that goblin, so we only have 2 more enemies to focus on now. And we also get to heal 3. I'm choosing to heal herself for 3, bring her up to a total of 18. The new Sea Curse card states humility. This one says heroes can only apply one improvement card. So that's good to know because we don't have to worry about that at all right now. The only one that has improvement cards that's currently using them is KO'd and out. We'll come back shortly, but that's not going to be a harmful thing to actually work around. So it's a pretty good one for early in the game. Then we have red now being the furthest and blue being the closest in terms of targeting. Now, the Elite Pirate is going after the furthest hero away, but unfortunately, there's no other hero that's close within its range. So if you take a look at how much movement it has to try to get to where it can go to make an attack, all of my heroes are so far away, he wouldn't even be able to move to get to them to make an attack in the first place. So he's happy to stay where he is to make an attack. So if there happened to be somebody over here, for instance, he'd actually leave Captain Doro alone if he had the movement to get over there and make an attack against the furthest opponent. But there is no target like that, so poor Doro is going to take this one. Now it's going to be an attack here, and this time it's going to be 7 plus the 5. It's still nasty. It's 12 potentially if the hit lands. If it doesn't, 3 residual damage. I'm hoping Captain Doro's defenses can hold up here, and Captain Doro has 6. So if this pirate lands a 6 or higher, we're in trouble. These villains, unlike part number 1's villains, are not messing around. These ones just don't miss at all. They're almost getting criticals. They're almost getting solid hits on everything they throw at me. So 12 damage is going to drop poor Captain Doro from 17 down to 5. But at the end of the day, as long as Captain Doro is alive, and after his massive hit in the last round, he is more than ready to do some assassination. Now, the assassination is not a guarantee. He still needs to land the hit to get the effect portion, which allows for the assassination. He is 1 space away from the enemy, so he doesn't even have to move. He's already exactly where he needs to be. The defense of this Elite Pirate is currently a 6, so we get a 6 or higher on this individual. We are good, and that individual is dead because, as it states, if an enemy is within 1 of you has 16 or less HP, which this one certainly does, then it's gone. So here's hoping I get it. Now, taking a look at my card here, I have a +3 to attack rolls as well from Captain Doro, so we have a +3 on this roll going in, so we got pretty good odds. Let's see how it goes. It's like the die already knew what was going to happen to the Elite Pirate, and it hits the side of him, and that's exactly where the dagger of Captain Doro goes straight into the side of the Elite Pirate, taking him out and assassinating him. The morale of the party is going up, the Elite has been taken out, the Goblin's been taken out, only a skeleton remains. And something else that remains in the game board is the treasure chest, which I haven't actually had a chance to go after, but right now Captain Doro does have movement left, as he can do his move action now after his prime action. He's only got 5 though, which is unfortunate because 4 will get him to the chest, and it requires 2 to interact with it to open it up, so he doesn't have enough to get inside, but guess who will? Captain Krog, and he's going to be coming back right now as we revive him with our final first aid token and bring him back into the fray. He's going to be able to activate and start in that position. Captain Krog comes back to life with a final first aid token. We've used all the tokens for the quest at this point. No more can be used. And one other thing to note is during Captain Doro's turn, he was holding the Cursed Crystal, which means he takes 4 damage, bringing him down to 1 HP. Captain Krog is going to use his turn to get up to that chest and interact with it. 3 movement will get him there, and 2 to interact. That'll take up his 5 movement. Then I'll choose to do another movement action after that, and we'll do a trade here. I'll take that Cursed Crystal from Captain Doro, preventing Captain Doro from dying in a future round, and put it back on Captain Krog. As he cracks open the chest, he finds an empowered token, which he'll be placing on his dashboard. Doing another movement action with another allotment of movement, I'm going to use 2 in order to interact with Captain Doro, taking the Cursed Crystal away from him. That leaves me with 3 movement points afterwards. And I'm going to have him continue to charge down towards the final enemy. We surrounded the skeleton, and the skeleton is now going to activate. Captain Doro is also safely outside of any kind of targeting the skeleton's going to do. As it's blue, it's going to the closest, and there's actually close individuals all the way around, equal distance. Well, the skeleton go after Captain Marva, which is unfortunate because she does have this token right here, which is vulnerable, so she'll take an additional 2 damage from an enemy attack during this turn, but she's never been targeted with anything. She did much earlier on. She's got 25 HP, though, of her 28, so she's very seldomly been touched by any enemy. In this case, the enemy's going to attack her. She's got 6 defense, and he's rolling to try to hit her, so 6 or higher is going to be a hit. Here's hoping it doesn't happen, and a 14, that is definitely going to be a hit, so it's going to be 7 damage plus 2 from this token here for 9. Also worth noting, the effect on the card will trigger for the skeleton says if the target had 16 or more when attacked, deal an additional 3. So unfortunately, she's taking another 3 on top of that. So it's going to be 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 2 from the token is 12. Those villain hits are no joke, even when they come from just a basic villain. This one is doling out a 25 HP down to 13 HP hit. That's going to do it for the round. At this point, we can circle right back to the very top, and it's going to be Captain Marva who actually gets the last laugh here. I don't know if she can take the skeleton out, but she's certainly going to try. Now, one thing I just recognized is the fact that I didn't take away the HP token from one of the individuals I killed off earlier on. The only one left here is the skeleton in blue. And just before we go into this brand new round, at the end of the round, the arcane cannons are going to fire. For the very first time, I have heroes in an even coordinate column. We have one here, we have one here, and we have one over here. Now, unfortunately, per the rules of the Arcane Cannon, it's going to prioritize the heroes that don't have enemies adjacent to it if there's more than 2 that can be targeted. In this case, there are 3 that can be targeted with the cannonballs. 2 of them need to be targeted, but if there's a villain adjacent to it, it's going to target the ones that do not have villains adjacent to it. So if I was set up more like this, then it would have been better, because then I could have actually got some residual damage. Not actually residual damage, but just damage in general, not only against my poor heroes, but that could have also affected the enemy. Unfortunately, with these guys being here, they are the 2 targets, and it creates a 2x2 grid around them, impacting any other heroes and villains. So this one's going to get hit for 5 damage, this one's getting hit for 5 damage, and then because of the area of effect being 2x2, 2 squares out in all directions, it's going to impact poor Captain Krog as well. So 5 damage going here, here, and here. That's a brutal slip up on my part. I was so excited about the treasure and kind of getting around it and basically focusing on it with Captain Krog and getting the cursed crystal out of my hands and all that good stuff. I wasn't really focused on getting Captain Doro out of harm's way. So he is going to be dead, and the other 2 are taking 5 damage. That's a substantial hit, but the only way we're going to lose this thing is if we actually reach Captain Doro in the initiative track. Thank goodness Captain Marva goes first, and then Captain Marianne. Between the 2 of them, I'm hoping we can do enough damage. We need 6 on the skeleton to take it out. Now, I think this is going to have to be a combo deal between Captain Marva as well as Captain Marianne in terms of both of them hitting to get the damage necessary to bring the skeleton from 6 down to 0. Just looking at what she can do, she can't make use of her passive power right now, because in order to get away and make distance, which I could do with movement, I'd have to trigger a reaction, which I certainly don't want to do and give any benefits to the skeleton right now. So we'll ignore this, but we do get the +3 to attack rolls from here. I'll probably go with tentacles here. So we're going to make an attack against it. It's going to be within 5, which is no problem. The target is skeleton. We're looking for a hit of 5 damage. Defense from the skeleton is 6, so a 6 or higher is going to be good, and we have a +3 to this attack roll on top of things. We got a 6 right on the nose. We're already good. That is going to do 5 damage. It is 1 away from being taken out. Captain Marva's sitting tight. We now move over to Captain Marianne. She's going to go ahead and do her healing water attacks. She's going to be doing this from distance, which she's definitely got the distance to do. 3 damage either way, whether I miss this or not, it's going to kill the skeleton. Let's go ahead with the roll. It needs to be a 6 or higher to make it happen. 13, that is more than enough. The skeleton goes down, and all the villains have been killed off just before this token here is so close to getting to Captain Doro. The next move through, the next turn would have been a loss. With encounter 2 completed and one of our heroes down, we continue on with the encounters 3 and 4 with only 3 heroes trying to get to the end of the quest. As your party continues on their adventure throughout the storybook, you'll see new landscapes and new terrain and new enemies to fight. And as you go into encounter 3 and 4 for this quest, once you've completed both of these, you get to the point where you can level up. You can take 3 level 2 main attack cards, choose 2 of them, discard the other, get advanced improvement cards, or player aids out and retrieve a quest card, a specific quest card 1, read it, and continue your adventure. So this is really where the game starts taking off. As your characters start leveling up, you're getting coins, of course, for the challenges that you were able to complete. Those challenges are basically scattered throughout the different encounters, so we weren't able to get the first encounter 1 challenge completed, but encounter 2's challenge, as you can see here, was to kill 2 enemies with cannon damage. We weren't able to get that one either, but if my focus had been on those, we could have got additional coins. You're still going to get coins for completing the quest no matter what, but you get additional ones for those challenges, so keep an eye out for those and try to go after them. Encounter 3 and 4 presents you with a completely different layout in terms of terrain, starting area, and things to think about strategy-wise as you push through these areas. And that, my friends, wraps up the GameFound preview series for Tanares Expeditions Central Sea from Dragori Games, landing on GameFound in mid-November. The exact date and the link to the campaign page to find more information will be found in the pinned comment and video description. Really hope this series of videos from the prototype to part 1 to the finale helps you see all the components that came as part of the prototype and also see the game in action to help you make an informed decision on it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of what you saw. And as always, keep on rolling solo.